sports fans, and welcome to the Heavy Hitters Podcast, the ultimate destination for your weekly dose of sports excitement with co-host Darnell Duff.
Now it's Sandvin, right point with it, left circle, Paul wants it, fires it, scores! Ashton Paul, welcome to Dauphin!
And co-host Jeff Henson.
Williams, blue line, shot, rebound! Oh, you hit, score! Score! Morgan McLean! The Storm are AJHL champions!
Whether you're into goals, touchdowns, three-pointers, or home runs, we've got it all covered. We're here to bring you the latest updates, witty commentary, and a whole lot of sports love. So, whether you're tuning in from the sidelines or the comfort of your own couch, get ready for a fast-paced ride through the world of sports. Strap in, because it's game time on the Heavy Hitters Podcast.
Welcome back. Good morning. Good afternoon. Could be the middle of the night for you. Wherever you are listening, welcome back to the Heavy Hitters Podcast. My name is Duffy, Darnell Duff. Pleased to be joined as always by Henny, Jeff Henson. And Jeff, this is episode number 8. And throughout the first 7 episodes, we got a lot of listeners throughout Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, even some in Virginia, which is really cool. But something that I find shocking is there are folks over the pond that are tuning in on a week-by-week basis.
We are becoming world-renowned, or at least to a handful of people across the pond from us.
Sweden, Bulgaria, Belgium, Romania. Unbelievable. I wonder how. How do they find? Because week by week, it is the same places, though. Every week it's Sweden, every week Belgium, every week it's Bulgaria. How did they find a podcast that came from Dauphin, Manitoba?
Well, they must have known something about maybe something else called Heavy Hitters and decided to check that out and came across our podcast. And hey, we got to be doing something right if they keep coming back and listening to us on a week-in, week-out basis. So hello to our friends over in Europe listening in to us.
And thank you for tuning in. Pretty cool stuff that we're not only hitting the Canadian market and the United States markets, but across the globe. Really cool. And someone who is also hitting it across the globe wherever he plays. I guess you could say it started at the Azaleas over the weekend. Just the aura that comes with the Masters. I absolutely love it. I also love to see some drama down the stretch, Jeff. That was not the case because Scotty Scheffler finished at 11 under par. Outstanding what this guy continues to do. Now, he beat Ludvig Åberg from Sweden, who also had a fantastic tournament. He was trying to become the first Masters debutant since Fuzzy Zeller back in the 70s to win. He ultimately came up short by 4 strokes. You talk about some other guys, Tommy Fleetwood, Colin Morikawa, and Max Homa finished at 4 under. But Scotty Scheffler just continues to set the bar, and no one appears to be anywhere close to him.
Boy, I tell you, some of the golf commentators on Monday, they were having the same discussion that you and I had about 2-3 weeks ago, saying, could he be one day up there among the likes of Tiger and Arnold Palmer as far as maybe some of the greatest golfers of all time? I'm not ready to put him on that pedestal just yet. This is only just his second Masters title, but if he keeps the way he's been playing so far this year and dominating the way he has so far this year, and if he can put up some impressive numbers like he did this weekend, finishing 4 shots ahead of your next closest competitor in a major tournament with the prestige of the Masters, those are pretty gaudy numbers early on in a career. And I'm curious to see Scotty Scheffler, who, let me get that off my chest, I did predict would win the Masters this year. I got to get that out there. I got every chance I get when I, just like a broken watch. I'm right at least 2 times in a day. When I'm right once in a while, I do have to kind of brag about it a little bit.
But that's the thing, Jeff. You're right more often than not, and I'm always wrong. It sucks. But when we talk about, it's interesting you bring up that point, Jeff, about the comparison of Scottie Scheffler and Tiger Woods. There's no doubt Scheffler is not there. I'm not sure if he ever will get there. But just the fact that those two names are in a number of sentences together, it impresses me. You got to go all the way back to the Tour Championship in August for the last time Scottie Scheffler shot over par in a round. 35 straight rounds under par, or not over par, I should say. Tiger Woods had a stretch of 52 back in 2001. So Scottie still has to make up 17. But what amazes me, through 109 starts for Scottie, he has 9 wins. Through 109 starts for Tiger, he has 31 wins. It's awesome to see the two names of Scheffler and Woods be in the same sentence on multiple occasions. But I think it just goes to show that we're seeing pure dominance from Scottie Scheffler. It is still not on the same level as Tiger Woods.
Oh, he's got a ways to go still before he can be at that point. Again, I mean, a couple of years from now, maybe we're having that conversation. I don't think we're ready to have that conversation right here, right now, at this point in 2024.
Now, Jeff, Scottie's back in action this weekend at the RBC Heritage. Now, a little bit of a curse over the past couple of years. Jon Rahm won the 2023 Masters. He did not win again that year. Scottie Scheffler won the Masters in 2022. He did not win again in 2022. It seems like he's the foregone conclusion as the favorite every single week, as he will be this week. He's already the favorite of all the 3 major championships moving forward, PGA, US Open, as well as the Open Championship. It's the curse of the past couple of years, but I don't see that continuing here.
I don't think it will with Scheffler. I'm pretty sure we're going to see Scheffler at some point this year, probably sooner rather than later, win another golf tournament. It's just the way he has been so dominant so far this year. This isn't just a one-off we're talking about here, folks. He has been dominant all season long. He has definitely found his game early on in this golf season, and I expect to continue here for a good portion of the year.
And you look at some of the statistics for Scottie Scheffler. Scoring average, 68.8. That's first. Birdie average per round, he's averaging more than 5.43. First. Strokes gained, 2.8. First. Stroke gains approach to the green, 1.34. That's first. And greens in regulation, he's nearly 75%. He's in first. Every major statistical category, Scottie Scheffler is there. We know how good he is. Now, going into the week, one of my picks was a man who had the opportunity to complete the Grand Slam in Rory McIlroy. He had not won 9. I know you're already shaking your head. He had not won a major 9 years, but I just thought that another opportunity to get the career Grand Slam. He's bombing the ball better than ever. He sort of got out of that controversy between him and Live Golf. Interesting enough. More on that coming up in just a couple of moments. I expected Rory to be in contention. That was not the case. Only 2 rounds under par, had a 77. Just some real lackluster golf from a former number 1 and a guy who I expect to be a lot better than he is.
You know you're in for a rough weekend when you come off your first round. Was he even or +1? Or he wasn't that bad. But he personally is telling the media he was embarrassed by how he played his opening round at the Masters this year. You know you're not in for a good weekend when you're already making comments like that.
Does he ever get the Grand Slam? Will he win a Masters?
I don't know. Does he have the mental game anymore now? Because it's one thing to go out there week in, week out and try to win a tournament. It's another thing to try and win a major tournament. Then amplify that on top of that when it's the Masters alone. And I don't know if Rory has got the mental game right now to win a Masters championship and to put 4 rounds together at Augusta.
So when Live Golf all started, it all came out, the Saudi-based tour. Rory McIlroy, he sort of spearheaded the PGA Tour effort against Live, had all bad things to say about Live. And now there are rumors that he might be headed to Live for $850 million. Tiger Woods was apparently he was rumored to be in that $1 billion signing fee for LIV. He, of course, did not go. He never will. Rory McIlroy was so against LIV at one point, and now rumors are spreading quite widely and by some pretty known sources that he could be taking $850 million to jump over. How the tables turn.
Can I quote former World Wrestling Federation wrestler, $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase? Everybody has a price.
No doubt. Do you think he's going to go? How shocked would you be that he's going to go after crapping on LIV for a real long time?
Well, he wasn't the only one that was doing that.
No, he wasn't. But
John Rahm was crapping on it for a while, and he eventually went over to LIV as well, too.
Not to the same level. I feel like Rory was a lot harder on LIV than any other golfer, and he was spearheading the PGA Tour's effort. And I know you mentioned John Rahm, who obviously did not win the Masters this year, but it's so ironic to me that Rory McIlroy is thinking of taking $850 million, but then again, why not? That's a lot of money.
Like I said, everyone's got their price. I know I'm pretty sure it would take a lot less for you and I to go to the LIV Golf Tour if they're going to ever offer us a
What would your price
signing.
be? Like, I don't know, like $50,000.
A couple Big Macs and a couple large fries. I'm there, boys.
Golf season. Okay, golf season. Love it. PGA Championship coming up. There's a major every month for the next few, which is just thrilling. I love it all. Kicking off with the Masters, of course, won by the god himself, Scotty Scheffler. Another god is Connor McDavid. Fourth player to ever reach 100 assists in a single season.
That's impressive.
That's not just impressive. That's magical. He is so good. Better than maybe perhaps ever. I know he had an assist against the San Jose Sharks, and I know San Jose would probably lose to the Flin Flon Bombers. But he was clocked going 32 kilometers an hour. Full speed, head up, head on a swivel. The guy is unbelievable. He's not going to win the scoring race, and yes...
Yeah, I was wrong on that one. I called him to come back and win the scoring race, and I told you, I'm not right all the time.
Not all the time. I am taking this to the bank because if I never get to celebrate another victory, I got to take it. But he's so fun to watch and so electric with his great speed, his hand-eye coordination, and you just get the feeling that this year is different, Jeff.
And let's not forget, too, remember, he didn't get off to the best of starts.
Terrible.
He was kind of like that whole Oiler team for the first month or so of the season. He was not off to his typical Connor McDavid start, but he has ramped it up over the last 2/3 of the regular season here to even put himself back in that conversation for a little bit as far as the scoring title and MVP goes.
Now, scoring race, could he have still won it if he stayed healthy? That's the big... going into Tuesday's action, there's plenty of action on Tuesday, but 10 points behind Kucherov. He missed a few games, and if he doesn't get off to this historical slow start, but then he had a recent stretch of 74 points in like 37 games. Connor McDavid is fun to watch. The Edmonton Oilers are playoff bound. And like I said, Jeff, I think for Edmonton right now, the vibe is different in that dressing room. I think they're getting some pretty good goaltending from Stuart Skinner. Their back end is something that worries me, that they give up too many good opportunities. And I'm not sure still if Stewie is ready for a long Stanley Cup playoff run. I'm not sure. I'd love to be proven wrong, but this Edmonton team, I don't know, just the persona around them, it just feels like this is different than years past.
I think it will be, but the big question is now is who are the Oilers going to play in round one of the playoffs? That's still to be determined here. You've got the LA Kings or the Vegas Golden Knights as potential first-round opponents. As an Oiler fan, I pose to you, who would you rather the Oilers face in round one of the postseason?
I don't think the Oilers have to be worried about either of their opponents. I think they beat the Kings. I think they beat the Golden Knights. If I had to pick one of those two it would likely be the Kings, which is unlikely to happen with how the rest of the regular season should sort out. Of course, Mark Stone is back with the Golden Knights. He just
Surprise.
Hey, Vegas, they're not doing anything wrong.
No.
But it was like there was a wrestling gif where someone had like their foot raised on a chair. You know who
Big Daddy Diesel.
Yeah.
Big Daddy Diesel had his leg raised up. All of a sudden, you see him get up, and the leg is fine. Yep. Everyone's saying, hey, there's Mark Stone.
So you can't, and that's championship. They know how to get the job done. They have championship pedigree. The LA Kings, not so much. So if there was a choice, I would prefer the Kings. I'm okay with the Golden Knights. I think the Oilers will win the first round for sure. I mean, I think this is a legitimately Stanley Cup contender, and you see all the analysts say it. So I like the Oilers against either of their opponents. If they had to choose, perhaps the Kings. Jets, the Winnipeg Jets, though, going up against Alexander Georgiev, Cale Makar, Nathan MacKinnon, and the Colorado Avalanche.
That's going to be a good series. It's going to be a good series. I'm still in shock. The Jets beat the Avalanche 7-0 Saturday night, walking into Denver and winning that one 7-0. I'm about as shocked as Nathan MacKinnon was after that game with the result of that contest itself. I don't think the Jets do that come the playoffs. It's not
going to be that easy.
It's definitely not going to be that easy. It's going to be a lot harder battle going up against the Avalanche. I still see guys like MacKinnon and Makar definitely stepping up their games. Georgiev has been good this year with as far as number of wins he picks up. Can he outbattle Connor Hellebuyck?
Numbers are great, though. He wins a lot, but his numbers, he gives up a lot of goals.
Can he outbattle Connor Hellebuyck over a 7-game series? That's the big question, I think.
Has Hellebuyck proven that he can take his game to the next level in the playoffs? I don't think he has.
Well, if you go back to, was it 2018 when they made the Western Conference Final? I think he
Vegas,
did.
Yeah.
He did over the first 2 series, and then got tired, I think, in that series.
Fatigue
again. That seems to always be the story when it comes to Hellebuyck in the playoffs. So what do the Jets do? Do we see Laurent Brossoit play these last 2 games of the regular season and give Hellebuyck that little bit extra rest going into the playoffs? Jets as well, too. I've still got a very good chance of winning the Jennings Trophy. They are, I believe, 4 goals against up on the Florida Panthers going into these final couple games of the regular season. Panthers have got Toronto Tuesday night on as we're recording this program. The Jets will have Seattle, and then I believe they got Vancouver to wrap up the regular season. So it's an outside chance. And how big is that for the Jets to try and win that award? Do you try to slide Hellebuyck in for one of these 2 starts, or do you let Brossoit, who I don't think, even if he starts these 2 games, would have his name on the Jennings Trophy, because I think you've got to start 25 games. And he's only started or played in 22 games so far this year. So he's not even going to be on that Jennings Trophy award if the Jets win it. So what do you do with that situation as far as who your goaltenders are in the last 2 games of the season?
A shame, because Brossoit, I think he's one of the best, one of the best second goaltenders in the NHL. I mean, he could be a starter. He would have won a Stanley Cup as the starter last year if he didn't go down to injury, and Adin Hill had to come in and did a really nice job. You bring up goaltenders, we're running out in time. Also, we should have talked about this at the start of the show, Jeff, but this is a big episode.
Yeah, we've got not one, but 2 guests joining us on the program this week. We are going to have one of, if not the best, U18 AAA hockey players in the entire country joining us in just a few moments' time. Jaxon Jacobson of the Brandon U18 AAA Wheat Kings, who are off later this week to New Brunswick for the Telus Cup Championships. And for our friends over to the west of us, I know it's kind of like, what's the thing on Corner Gas when they say the one town and then they spit to the ground afterwards? That's kind of like us Manitobans when we talk about Saskatchewan. We've got to spit to the ground afterwards when we say that. But the new play-by-play voice for the Saskatchewan Roughriders is going to join us on the program, Dave Thomas, and looking forward to chatting with him and finding out what's happening in Riderville going into the soon-to-be start of another football season.
Well, you never know. Maybe in the future we're going to get the chance to see a 15-year-old from Brandon playing in the NHL. He's draft eligible in 2027. It's Jaxon Jacobson, one of the most decorated U18 players in Manitoba history. He's coming up. Ladies and gentlemen, from wherever you're listening, big shout out to you. This is the Heavy Hitters Podcast.
Duffy and Henning are coming back with a bang any moment now. Get ready for another round of intense action. Don't miss a beat. Head over to the Heavy Hitters Podcast on Facebook and hit that subscribe button to stay in the loop 24/7.
Back on the Heavy Hitters Podcast, and pleased to be joined today by one of the most decorated forwards in Manitoba AAA U18 hockey history, a fifth overall pick, I should say, in the first round of the Western Hockey League's Brandon Wheat Kings, eligible for the 2027 NHL draft, Jaxon Jacobson. Jaxon, thank you so much for joining the podcast. 106 points in the regular season this year. That's the fourth most in league history. Only Pat Falloon, Brian Koster, as well as Dustin Boyd had more than you in a single season, but you also did average more per game with 3.03 points with the Brandon Wheat Kings this year. You guys have advanced to the national championship. But Jaxon, first of all, let's just go to when you were a young little guy, maybe roaming around the rink, spending a lot of time. Of course, your dad, obviously huge into the hockey scene, but what was life for you growing up? Were you just, when did you get yourself into the game of hockey and realize that you were an exceptional player?
Yeah, that's a good question. I kind of started hockey really young, obviously, outdoor rinks. I think my first actual year was when I was like 3 or 4. I started playing Timbits, and I think the time when I really noticed that I could compete with the best of the best was when I was about 8 or 9, and I tried out for the Team Manitoba Brick team, and I was kind of really nervous going into it, but I competed with the guys and I made the team, and I ended up doing really well that year in all the tournaments and won MVP in the big one, and that's when I kind of realized that I really should keep pursuing what I love doing, and after that everything's been going pretty good, and the next couple of years when I was like 10, 11, I spent a lot of time with a lot of role models in the Wheat Kings, and I think last 2 years ago with Calder, Anderson, and Nolan Ritchie, I was really close with those guys. So spending time around the rink with those guys really kind of showed me what the WHL would be like. And then spending time around the rink actually playing games in WHL was pretty similar to what I had learned from them.
Jaxon, obviously, growing up in Brandon, you already mentioned got to watch the Wheat Kings a lot, and a couple of guys that you got to talk with and kind of learn a lot from. Who were guys on that, maybe some other guys on the Wheat Kings teams over the years that you got to watch that you idolized and wanted to kind of maybe pattern some of your play after?
I really liked Ridley Gregg, just kind of how he could bury a hat trick and how he could be greasy and make the other team really mad. He seemed pretty difficult to play against, and that's kind of the style of hockey I want to play.
Jaxon Jacob joins on the Heavy Hitters Podcast coming off an all-star season. It's safe to say that the fourth most points in Manitoba AAA U18 Hockey League history, 106 in the regular season, 37 goals and 69 assists. Also, prior to that, won a U15 championship with the Brandon Wheat Kings. And then you move forward into the WHL draft, Jaxon. You were ultimately drafted 5th overall by your hometown team, the Wheat Kings. Of course, your dad now owns that team. Take us back to that and how it felt to be drafted in the Western Hockey League and with it being so high.
Honestly, it was a crazy year. A lot of nerves went into that. Just knowing that there's scouts at every game, just kind of sticking and playing my game was what I was trying to do, is not really think about it. But when the draft actually came, it was a blast, and being able to get drafted to my hometown team and being able to be here for the next couple of years of my career, it's going to be a great time, and I'm really looking forward to it.
We've already talked a little bit about your dad, Jaxon. As I mentioned to you off air, I had the pleasure of getting to call some of his games in his final junior year with the Swan Valley Stampeders back in 1999-2000. How big of an influence has he been on your hockey career, and who have been some other coaches or people that have influenced you through your years growing up now to this season, leading up to this season with the U18 Wheat Kings?
Yeah, no, my dad's been a huge influence in my career. Obviously, he's taught me pretty much everything I know, other than, like, obviously skills coaches help here and there, but everything just down to earth, everything on and off the ice is from my parents, and my dad's played a big role in just kind of keeping me on track with a lot of my hockey, and I really am grateful for that. But some other role models I've had, I love all my coaches, obviously. I've had Michael Furlan on the bench a couple of times. He's got some great advice for me, and Riley Dewar, I've worked with him for a while. He's a great skills coach, and he's with the Wheat Kings now, and I really respect him a lot. I respect all my coaches a lot. They've been really great to me over the years, and this year in U15, everyone's been a big part of my journey so far.
So, Jaxon, you just going back to that U15 year and going into the draft, you felt you were nervous, perhaps maybe some pressure went into it. And I always find it interesting that what pressure means to a guy. Some guys can crumble under the pressure. Some guys can exceed expectations and take their games to the next level, which you certainly have. What has pressure, because I would imagine there's been a lot of pressure on you over the years. You're supposed to be a superstar, and you certainly are living up to all that hype. But what has pressure meant to you over the years?
Definitely when I feel pressure, I just kind of try to use it as energy. It's something that helps me a lot in the big games. It's just using his energy, and instead of just kind of folding and watching my teammates do it or whatever, I kind of try to be the guy and just try to stick to my game, use it as energy. It helps a lot. It gets the adrenaline going. So, no, it definitely helps.
Jaxon, it's been an incredible year for the U18 Wheat Kings. Darnell, I think you've got the stats in front of you there. The long winning streak in between losses, just the one regulation loss all year, that coming to Thunder Bay at the West Regionals, an overtime loss during the regular season as well, too. Undefeated run otherwise, though, through the Manitoba playoffs. Have you ever experienced a season of this extent before, prior to this year?
Honestly, U15 was pretty close to this, I'd say, but obviously the league in U15 wasn't quite the caliber, and the teams just I guess everyone's more mature now and faster, stronger hockey. But U15, our record was pretty similar, and we kind of rolled through the league. But I think this year was pretty special. I think U15 kind of went by pretty fast. This one's kind of still going, and I kind of love playing hockey in April. So, I mean, this one's probably the most special.
Jaxon, you guys needed an overtime winner against the Saskatoon Blazers in the West Regional Final. You know, you talk about all the success you ran through the regular season with one overtime loss. Nobody came even close to you in the postseason. I mean, a couple of close games in the final, but other than that, you go 9-0. You go to the regionals, have some success. You lose to Thunder Bay, but you rebound against the Blazers, and Brady Turco gets the winner. He's played on your line. You guys are 1-2 in league scoring. Definitely a dynamic duo. Take us back to the Hockey for All Center and what you were witnessing, watching Brady go coast to coast and seeing your line mate and another superstar in the making cap off that and earn your berth to the Telus Cup.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of saw Josh just bump the puck back and Brady take control of it. Now, overtime's a pretty man-on-man coverage, so me and Josh are kind of back in the play, and Brady was wheeling up the ice, and I think he kind of got a one-on-one, and his guy, luckily, he got a forward, so he kind of thought he could manipulate him on a one-on-one. So he kind of did his thing, and he's a pretty great player, as you guys have probably seen over the years. So he kind of did his thing and then ended the game. And yeah, it was a great moment. It was a pretty nice goal.
Jaxon, Nationals, as we mentioned, coming up here shortly in New Brunswick. Brandon has won once already at the U18 AAA level a couple of years back. I don't know if pressure is the right word, but what are the expectations for you and for that team heading off here to New Brunswick shortly for Nationals?
The expectations are that we are the best team going there, and that we just have to play like it, and honestly just know that we can beat every team there. I mean, we got the team to do it, and we got coaches, we got goaltending, we got defense, we got forwards, we got exactly what we need. So I'm really excited to see what happens, but I think we could do it.
Now, Jaxon, I know it wasn't the outstanding season the WHL Wheat Kings were looking for, ultimately lost in the first round of the playoffs. With that being said, you had the opportunity to play in 7 games with the team that drafted you 5th overall in the 2023 WHL draft. I mean, you started the season as a 14-year-old. You came in, you immediately made a bang with the Western Hockey League team. What allowed you to, what appears to me anyways, and to so many others, to have that seamless transition as a 14 and a 15-year-old to play in the Western Hockey League against guys who are as old as 20 years old?
Yeah, the first couple of games for me went really well. I think a big factor in that is just the training that I've done over the last couple of years has kind of been with those guys like Clark Caswell, Quinn Mantide, Andre Malieven, just all the WHL players. There's lots more like Ben Sanderson, Tyson Zimmer, just guys I've trained in Brandon over the summer. I mean, it's a pretty elite group in the summer, and training with those guys definitely helped me with my confidence, knowing that if I can compete with them in practice, I can compete with them in a game. And I just kind of stuck to that in my game. And all the Wheat Kings that I played with this year, they were kind of just telling me play my game, stick to my game, just trust myself, and it really helped me out there. And the line mates I had were great too. They found the right spots to be and got me the puck. So.
Take us back to the first goal with the Wheat Kings, Jaxon, to be able to do it at home ice. What were the emotions going through your body when you saw that puck go into the back of the net?
Oh man, it was a crazy feeling. I kind of black out. I don't really remember because I didn't know what celly to do because I kind of got jumped by my teammates. I couldn't really hit a celly, but it's all right because I didn't really know what I was going to do anyway. So I don't know. I just kind of I was kind of fading away and I shot it. I didn't think it was going to go in. It wasn't my hardest shot I've ever taken, but I ended up going in and I was just, I don't know, really pumped. And I got water spray on my face on the bench by every guy. So it was that woke me up.
So, Jaxon, you had pleased to be joined by one of the most decorated players in Manitoba U18 AAA history, in Jaxon Jacobson. You had 37 goals in the regular season, and then another 12 goals in the playoffs to help the Wheat Kings win the Manitoba AAA League. And then, of course, you won the West Regional in overtime over the Saskatoon Blazers. You have 4 goals also in the Western Hockey League. So go back to that, Selly. You've had all sorts of opportunities to celebrate big goals. Do you have a favorite one?
I do. I haven't done it, but I wanted to do like a slick back of the hair kind of motion on my helmet. I wanted to do that if I was going to score in overtime, but that's more if it's a big goal. But I really like if it's a close game or something, I'll sally, and it's usually me going down to one knee and doing something. But I don't know, it just kind of happens in the heat of the moment. I probably got to think of a couple here to do for nationals.
Now, Jaxon, one final question. Again, we appreciate you joining on the Heavy Hitters podcast. Do you ever feel overwhelmed? You have some pretty high expectations, not only of yourself, but with all the success you've had. People, not only in Manitoba, but across this country, are now certainly, if they haven't already, keeping an eye on Jaxon Jacobson. So you have a lot to live up to. Do you feel ever overwhelmed by that? Or do you believe that you're ready for this moment that you've shown you are?
No, obviously there's a lot of pressure that goes into it, and I have, honestly, the most pressure is just the pressure I have on myself. Like, I have a lot of expectations for myself, but I feel when I'm out on the ice, it kind of all goes away. It's just me playing my game and finding my line mates, and it's easy when I play with guys like Turks and Odie. They're pretty good players, so they honestly help me relieve all the pressure, and kind of, I know they have a lot of pressure on them too. They're great players, so we kind of just help each other and help each other succeed, and it definitely does work. 106
points this year, the 4th most in Manitoba AAA U18 Hockey League history. set the precedent for domination. Jaxon Jacobson. Jaxon, thank you so much for taking the time. We certainly appreciate you chatting with us, and best of luck at the national championships and with where the future takes you, and undoubtedly that will be with the Wheat Kings next year.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on here. It was awesome.
Get ready, folks. The Heavy Hitters podcast is about to bring the heat as Duffy and Henny return in just a moment. But here's the kicker. You can be part of the action, too. Want your voice heard on the show? Shoot the boys a message on their Heavy Hitters Facebook page with your burning question, and they'll give you a big shout-out next week when they answer it. But for now, buckle up for more heavy-hitting action with Duffy and Henny.
Pleased to be joined now on the Heavy Hitters podcast by the new voice of the Saskatchewan Roughriders, Dave Thomas. Dave, thank you so much for taking the time. An ultimate pleasure of ours to have you on the show today. And we like to open all our interviews with a little bit of a flash to the past and get to know you a little bit. And that's exactly what we want to do with you today, Dave. And I want to go back to your teenage years, first of all, when you were actually an employee at McDonald's in Weyburn. And I can go back to that time. The owner actually said, you have a great voice. You went to the drive-thru, and some employees perhaps weren't super pumped about that because you had the chance to skip the fries station. And then down the road, you actually were interviewed on the AM 1190 there in Weyburn, talking about the Arch Deluxe Burger. Now, Dave, when you first got to AM 1190, just as a teenager, was that the time when you thought, this is the business I want to be in, being in radio?
Absolutely. You know, in all honesty, my parents could say, oh, you know, there was many indications way prior to that it was something that you should do, but I never seriously thought about it. And I didn't even really believe that it could be a career. And so when I got the opportunity to go in and do that interview, I looked around and I just, wow, this is something else. And I just saw the excitement, and you just kind of felt a whole wave of emotion when you walk in there, and the enthusiasm and the adrenaline rush, and it all just came pouring in. And I'm like, wow, if this is something that I could do and actually someone might pay me to do it, sign me up.
Dave, congratulations on the new gig with the Saskatchewan Roughriders. I mean, a case can certainly be made that the Riders' play-by-play job is probably one of, if not the most marquee play-by-play jobs in the CFL when you consider the Riders are the only game in town when it comes to Saskatchewan pro sports outside of the Saskatchewan Rush, but also just the huge following that the Riders have, not just in Saskatchewan, but across the country. Your reaction to being given this opportunity to call play-by-play for a team like the Roughriders?
Well, the word that I've been using, guys, is humbled, because truly I'm humbled. It's an opportunity that I have that really, if you look at it, for CFL play-by-play guys in our country, there are 9. And so I am one of 8 other people in our entire country that have the opportunity to broadcast Canadian Football League games. So I'm very humbled. I'm very honored that I have this opportunity. And it still gives me goosebumps to just hear you talking about, like, hey, this is what you get to do. And it just hasn't even sunk in yet. Hopefully that happens sometime before May 20th.
Now, Dave, does it put any pressure on you being the new voice of the green and white? You just heard Jeff talk and yourself how coveted becoming the voice of the Saskatchewan Roughriders come. And there's been a lot of great play-by-play voices of the Roughriders in the past. So now you being the guy, you mentioned how humbled you are, but does any pressure come along with that?
It's interesting because I guess it goes to your definition of what is pressure, because I won't kid you that I am an absolute perfectionist, and my wife and kids can attest to that. And the fact that, like, I can't go to sleep at night unless our shoes are lined up at the door, left, right, left, right. If they're discombobulated at all, then I'm in trouble. So when it comes to me, I put a ton of pressure on myself. And I think the word that I would use instead of pressure perhaps is expectation. Is I want excellence when I'm broadcasting anything, whether that's a weather forecast or whether that's a football game. So I don't think that anybody could put more pressure on me than there is on me, or have higher expectations of me than there are of me. So if I can go ahead and try to achieve, and trust me, I haven't had the perfect broadcast yet, and I've been doing this a long time. So if I can go ahead and try to go ahead and meet my own expectations, then I think that pressure just goes hand in hand, if you know what I mean.
Speaking with Dave Thomas, the new play-by-play voice for the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Dave, I think the word under expectations, maybe what might be one that best described last season for the Saskatchewan Roughriders, failing to make the playoffs and then leading eventually to Craig Dickinson no longer being the head coach of the Riders. What's the word around Regina and the entire province of Saskatchewan as a whole to Corey Mace becoming the new head coach of the Riders, and what are the expectations with him taking over the club?
Well, I think that there's a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of excitement around the Roughriders right now from what I hear. Now, going back to last year and not meeting expectations, and again, expectations is a big word, but if you think about it, in the CFL, it's a quarterback-driven league, and 5 games into the season, quarterback Trevor Harris went down. And I know you can never go ahead and make like a linear extraction of statistics, but if you were to look at it, and you projected what he did in 4+ games over an 18-game season, he would have ended up number 2 in passing yards in the Canadian Football League. Now, that's no slight to what we saw in the development of Jake Dolegala or even Mason Fine when he was starting at quarterback. It's just a fact that you didn't have your quarterback for 13 out of 18 games last year, and that's tough on any team in any league at any time. So when Coach Mace comes in, he does inherit a healthy Trevor Harris, which I think is a huge plus right off the bat. But then the Riders have worked very hard in the offseason, shoring up the offensive line, making sure that he's got some backfield support in A.J. Ouellette, perhaps the best running back in the Canadian Football League right now. And I put the asterisk just because I don't want to get called out on it by somebody else in the league saying, oh, no, it should be this guy. But you look at those sheer improvements by the Roughriders offensively, and yes, I really think that that's going to go ahead and advance the football, if you will. Defensively, they've gone ahead and they've made a number of improvements through free agency, as well as the fact that consider that sometimes the best defense is an offense, because if you can keep your offense on the football field and moving the ball and perhaps running the football better than before, you got a real opportunity to do some exciting things. So sometimes you can make your unit better just by not having to be on the field as much as the Rider defense was last year.
Certainly looking forward to the start of the Canadian Football League season, and CFL fans, you can be pleasured to know that this is the last full month of no CFL as it gets started next month with some exhibition play. Pleased to be joined now by the new voice of the Saskatchewan Roughriders on the Heavy Hitters podcast, and Dave Thomas. And Dave, I even want to go back a little bit further, back to 2001, when you joined the Saskatoon Media Group. You called in excess of 400 plus Saskatoon Blades games of the Western Hockey League. They were having a great season, being up a couple of games against the Red Deer Rebels. You also called Saskatoon Hilltops games as well as the Saskatchewan Huskies football team. Dave, has it always been football for you in the foremost, or did you really enjoy your time calling hockey games as well?
Oh, absolutely. I love all sports. I love watching and analyzing sports, and just athletes and their stories I find absolutely fascinating. So having that opportunity, definitely, any sport, anytime. Now, football is my passion, definitely, and I was very fortunate enough, as you mentioned, Saskatoon Media Group. When I was hired, I actually wasn't even hired to do any sports at all, and it just so happened that Les Lazarick, the legendary voice of the Saskatoon Blades, needed a color guy 3 games before the 2001-2002 season opened, as the person that he had pegged to do the job had to get off the responsibility because they had taken a new profession or a new job, a new professional opportunity, pardon me, I guess is the way to go. So 10 years after that, Les and I had broadcast a whole bunch of hockey games together, and then we continued to obtain more rights deals with various teams around our community. So that allowed me to do the Saskatoon Hilltops for a number of seasons, and then the Saskatchewan Huskies as well. I even got into lacrosse with the Saskatchewan Roughriders at 3 seasons. Following them across North America, doing play-by-play for them as well. So to answer the question, I'm very, very, very fortunate. I'm a very lucky person when it comes professionally that so many people have believed in me and given me opportunities to expand my play-by-play opportunities. And it even went as far as the Memorial Cup, the World Junior Hockey Championship, of which I've had parts of broadcasts and national broadcasts for. So, yeah, I'm very, very fortunate and very, very lucky.
Who would be some of your idols, guys that you've looked up to play-by-play wise, that you kind of maybe have patterned some of your play-by-play after, Dave?
Well, I know that we're in Manitoba a little bit, so pardon the Vancouver Canucks here, but I've been a Vancouver Canuck fan for a long, long time. Jim Hewson was one of my all-time favorites. Chris Cuthbert, love listening to Mr. Cuthbert and his call. Peter Labardius, I've had an opportunity to work with him on a few occasions, but just the way that he broadcasts, his memory, his retention, the detail that he has when it comes to broadcasting games is insane. Bob Irving, CJOB in Winnipeg. I love listening. Again, I'm kind of a CFL nut in the summer, and the fact that I won't watch a lot of the games. I'll actually listen to the radio broadcast. So Mark Steven over in Calgary, boy, the list goes on and on. There's just so many people that I'm just love listening to and admire their work.
Dave, I'm not going to... Calling hockey games certainly is not an easy feat. It's what I do here in Dauphin. It's not easy. It's fast. It's tough. But when it comes to football, I think it's two different calls. Hockey, it's go, go, go for 20 minutes. Of course, you have the occasional stoppage. But when it comes to football, you have a play, and then you have maybe 9-10 seconds off before another play where you have to fill the gap. Was that a challenge going from hockey to football, or was it pretty seamlessly for you?
First and foremost, I commend you on the work, as I actually had an opportunity to do some listening of some of your broadcasts. So you're sensational. So congratulations on that. You do a terrific job. But sorry, to get back to answering your question, it's a different rhythm and a different cadence. And fortunately, I've been very, very lucky to have broadcast with some outstanding color analysts over the years. And so in football, you try to paint the picture, I find, prior to snap to here's what it looks like and here's what we can anticipate perhaps happening, and then call the play as to how it happens. And then the color analyst comes in and tells you here's why that happened, whether it worked, whether it didn't, what they were seeing, why the strategy maybe went into that play call, both offensively and defensively. So there's that opportunity for in-depth analytics. During a hockey game, as you know, you can't really go ahead and break that down as why didn't that forecheck work, or why all of a sudden have they gone ahead and changed out their breakup or their defensive regroup, so on and so forth. So there's not an opportunity to be as analytical during a hockey game as there is a football game, but again, it may seem like a slower pace in football. It isn't. You just have to do your homework. And in hockey, as you know, it's go, go, go all the time. And both have their excitement. Both come in spurts and bursts. And again, just being prepared and enjoying every moment of it is kind of how they flow together. But yeah, it is a difference between the two.
Dave, going back to talking about the Riders and some of the moves they've made here in free agency in the offseason, you already mentioned AJ Ouellette and just that different angle now that the Riders offense is going to be able to have this year by having such a strong running game and a guy like AJ Ouellette. But the move that I thought was really big, and myself being a Bomber fan, was the one that really hurt me the most, was the signing of Jamarcus Hardrick for your O-line. What type of an addition do you feel Hardrick is going to be for the Riders this year?
Well, he's got championship pedigree, right? You come from a team that has been consistently in the conversation of being the best. There's something that you get from that you can't get elsewhere. And I wish I could put my finger on it and say, is it confidence? Is it just experience? Is it having understood? Because you go back to teams, and I've heard that, if you don't learn to win, you're not going to win. And sometimes it's the school of hard knocks you have to go to when you're learning to win. And other times it's just a battle. So I think that experience is something that he brings. Now, of course, he was in Saskatchewan prior to going to Winnipeg a number of years ago already, but I think that pedigree will elevate his teammates. And if you can make your teammates better, you're doing something really, really special. And I think that that's what he is going to bring, not to mention the fact that he's absolutely solid along the offensive line, one that has had its battles over the last couple of seasons in Riderville.
Now, Dave, how much in overall terms does this Saskatchewan Roughriders organization mean to you? I mean, yeah, I almost feel bad, but going back to I do feel bad going back to grade 10, 11, and 12 for yourself. You played football and you wore number 27 as a tribute to Glenn Suter, who had 51 interceptions and is the all-time leader for the Roughriders when it comes to that statistic. How much does this organization mean to you?
Oh, absolutely. You grow up loving the organization. I had a Ray Elgard jersey that I think my parents finally had to get rid of when it was down to its bare threads, because you just wore it to the bone. And yeah, you mentioned, again, I was thrust into being a defensive back in high school football, and it was primarily because I had to miss the offensive workouts over the summer because we did a family vacation or something ridiculous at the time. And so I was a defensive back. I was absolutely brutal because I didn't listen to my coaches, nor did I play our defensive style. But I wanted to be Glenn Suter so bad that I just went to where the ball was going. And I was fortunate enough to make a number of interceptions. I was also fortunate enough to give up a number of long bomb plays along the way, and probably an ulcer or two for our defensive coaching staff way back when. But yeah, Glenn Suter was the guy that was who I wanted to be, because he was a broadcaster, and of course he is an outstanding football player. But you grow up, you never forget, right? Like, some of the greatest moments that I had growing up was when we got our license in Weyburn, and like, you're 16 years old and you can drive to a football game. So we'd drive up, we'd get the cheapest seats that we possibly could find. Not saying that we went under the fence ever at Old Taylor Field, but that's what it meant. That was going to the big show in Regina when you were a kid from southern Saskatchewan. So that was what it was all about.
Well, now I got to ask you now, Dave. I mean, talking about how you wanted to be Glenn Suter growing up, I understand Suits is going to be helping out with some of the Rider broadcasts over the course of the season. So how big of a thrill is that now you get to work side by side with him?
It's absolutely a pleasure. I've had an opportunity, fortunately enough, to cross paths with him a number of times through our career. Glenn Suter gives up his time with the Dogs Breakfast, and that's a University of Saskatchewan Husky Football Foundation fundraiser that they run every spring, and they pack about 1,000 people into a dining hall. They have breakfast, and they bring some of the biggest names in the sport, like Sean Payton is going to be the guest this year for the Dogs Breakfast. And so Glenn perennially is one of the MCs and one of the hosts, and I've had an opportunity to share the stage with him there, as well as some other events around the organization and around the communities of Saskatchewan. So it's phenomenal. He is down to earth. He is fun loving. He does his homework just like he does whenever he was playing, and now he translates that into television broadcasts. And to have an opportunity to work even closer with him is an absolute pleasure.
Dave Thomas is the new voice of the Saskatchewan Roughriders as the Canadian Football League season is certainly right around the corner. Dave, just a couple of more quick notes. You were the visiting sideline reporter for 3 years for the Roughriders, including the 2013 Grey Cup. I know you've been a fan for a long time. You mentioned going back to your teenage years, but is the Riders game against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers when it comes to the Labor Day Classic and the Banjo Bowl? I know every game is important. I'm not, not saying that, but those two games, are those sort of circled on the calendar as extra important games, or because you just see the passion in the stands, respective Bomber fans and Rough Rider fans? That's what they live for. What do those games mean to you?
Oh, those games, just hearing you talk about them is giving me goosebumps, because it is a feeling like none other. And you know what, as much as there's a rivalry, it's all about cheering for your team, your community, showing your passion and pride, and nothing can beat that. And yeah, I've got Labor Day circled. Absolutely. I've never had an opportunity to go to a Banjo Bowl, and this will be the first one for me. And like I say, both fan bases are absolutely passionate. They love football. They understand football. They cheer for football. So yeah, going back to when I was just a fan, it was always one that we wanted to attend as far as the Labor Day Classic went, and now getting an opportunity to broadcast it and try to bring some of that excitement and some of the shivers that go down your neck if there's a flyover, or back in the old days at Taylor Field when they used to have parachute jumpers and skydivers bring the footballs in from the plane and they had to land at center field. Like, those are the days, those are the memories. And again, hopefully I can relive and recount some of those memories going forward this year and beyond.
He's been a part of games in the Western Hockey League, Youth Sports, Prairie Football Conference, the World Junior Hockey Championships, the Memorial Cup. He's been a sideline reporter, and now Dave Thomas is the new voice of the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Dave, thank you so much for taking the time. Really do appreciate it. Amazing to see you getting to continue with your passion, and certainly looking forward to listening to Riders games this summer. So best of luck, and again, thank you so much for the time on joining the podcast.
Darnell, Jeff, again, appreciate what you guys are doing. You guys are fantastic broadcasters. Thank you so much for taking some time for me, and hopefully we can see it at a football game or something down the road.
Once again, that was the new voice of the Saskatchewan Roughriders, Dave Thomas, here on the Heavy Hitters podcast. And Jeff, what a fun show it has been. Kicked it off with one of, if not the top U18 hockey players in Manitoba history, Jaxon Jacobson, And then we're joined, and we also chatted about the Masters and some NHL playoffs. And then we're joined by the new voice of the green and white, the ever passionate Dave Thomas. Just what a thrill for number 8.
You know, I'm telling you, I was a little rough on Saskatchewan earlier on in the podcast, but I mean, between chatting with Dave and a great conversation with him, I also got to tip my hat. My fiance is originally from Saskatchewan, and she's a Rough Rider fan, so maybe I'm a little hard on the Rough Riders here. I'm certainly not going to cheer for them when they're playing for the Bombers against the Bombers this year, but maybe I got to pull back a little bit on the hatred for Saskatchewan a bit there.
I got a lot of respect for Dave Thomas. Dave, thank you so much for joining. Jackson as well. Shout out to all of our amazing fans, not only in Canada, not only south of the border, but in Europe as well.
Around the world.
Cool stuff. And don't forget, you can take us 24/7 wherever you go. We're on Spotify, iHeartRadio, we're on YouTube Music. So if you want the Heavy Hitters podcast with Duffy and Henny, we'll be with you 24/7. Time to take a chill pill, take a little bit of a break, a breather. Next week, Jeff, we got another big show prep, don't we?
We certainly do. A big guest coming up on next week's program. Let's leave this one simmer and percolate. Let people think about who it's going to be before we announce it, though.
But I promise you, it is big. Jeff, we'll chat with you in a week.
See you in 7.
This is the Heavy Hitters Podcast. We'll chat with you around the clock.
That's a wrap for this week on the Heavy Hitters Podcast. Don't forget to give the guys a follow on Twitter at It's the Duffy One and JHenson73. You can also keep up to date with the podcast by visiting the Heavy Hitter Podcast on Facebook. Duffy and Henny will return next week, but for now, keep it real and keep it heavy hitting.